A very good afternoon to you. I really wasn't going to do this vlog. I wasn't terribly inspired. Um, but I've given in. The Olympus Trip 35. This camera was given to me, so yeah, straight away. It has languished in the bottom of my Billingham bag for about 6 years. That's just how inspired I was to use this camera. I mustn't sound ungrateful. I'm hugely grateful. I don't even know if it works. This is the kind of camera that I've always associated with my parents using. Yeah. Do I, it's just a little relic from yesteryear. That's as much as I could probably say about it. Then I started looking at it a little bit closer. I dug it out and I thought, hey, it's a metal body. Okay, box ticked. It's fairly clean. It's, not got any rust on it, no nasty dinks or scrapes. But, I thought maybe I'll put it on a shelf. People say they look quite funky. They look very 60s and what have you. Very retro. Maybe they do. I don't know. I'm just not hugely inspired. Plastic shutter release, plastic kind of wind-on mechanism at the back here. I'm sort of thinking junk throwaway camera, and that's probably as much as I thought. Other than it's a metal body, so maybe it's not. But you know what I mean? Plastic shutter release, plastic wind-on mechanism. That's a bit in the disposable camera world as far as I'm concerned. And then I did, as I said, I did a bit of research, and it has a Zuiko lens, Zuiko. Didn't mean an awful lot to me, to be perfectly honest. I'd never heard of a Zuiko lens. It's a 40mm, which is, people saying it's a nice sweet spot. And I can go with that, yeah. Something just a tad wider than a standard lens, but not as wide as a 35. Zuiko. Apparently, really amazing lens. Then my ears pricked up. Then I started thinking, okay, that's, anything with a sharp lens, I'm there. I'm interested. And that's really when I started getting a little bit excited. Not excited. I wouldn't go that far. But I'm thinking, okay, it's not a disposable camera. Let's put it like that. It has 4 symbols on the lens. Let's give this some context. So this is, people are going on holiday for the first time abroad. Yeah, they're flying abroad. That was a very posh thing when I was a kid. So not many people, but yeah, people are beginning to go to different countries abroad. Places other than Devon, which is where I went the vast majority of times. And very lovely it is. Very, very fond memories of Devon. But, Olympus Trip 35. So Trip, the clue is in the name, Trip, holiday, 35mm. And that's another big, massive tick. You've got a great lens and you've got a full frame 35mm film camera. Those are key things for me. Very, very important. I don't care how good the lens is if it's a poxy tiny little format. You know, you've got to be able to blow it up a little bit. You've got to have malleable files, as far as I'm concerned. Full frame 35, really good. Okay, so now I've got a little bit of context, and I'm thinking, okay, it's kind of point and shoot. It's kind of foolproof for your parents that don't know anything about photography. That's great. That's clever, not clever marketing, clever research by Olympus. Well thought out. Everything's sort of okay. I'm getting to understand this a little bit. You know, Olympus Trip and Kodak Brownie. Everyone my age has heard of those cameras. We've probably never used them, most of us, but our parents did. So these were produced or first rolled off the production line in 1967 and went on until 1984. Wow. Okay. 10 million copies sold. 10 million cameras, 10 million units. That apparently could be a little inflated. Possibly is, possibly isn't. I don't know. The numbers here, if those are anything to go by, go up to about, I think it's 5,400,000 or something. I don't know. There were variations on a theme as well, so I'm not sure if those were given production numbers. I don't know. It doesn't matter. They sold like hotcakes. They couldn't make enough of them. So huge amounts. And, you know, a company doesn't make that many cameras if they're not wanted. You know, people wanted them in their troves. So that's something in itself. Now, people back then didn't have many choices. They didn't know much about photography. It was the only thing out there, really. So 10 million, you know, again, put it into context. I mean, the equivalent price was about £400. So it wasn't a cheap camera. But I guess if you could afford to fly, then perhaps £400 back then, an equivalent price back then, was not that much money. I don't know. But it was that and the Kodak Brownie. So there weren't many other choices. So 10 million, yeah. Again, you've got to put it into the equation. But regardless, it's still a heck of a lot of cameras. Yeah, it's been gathering dust. I don't even know if this works. So I thought, okay, bite the bullet. I'm going to take it out. I am going to put a roll of film through it. Roll of HP5 Plus. Then I realised, it only goes up to 400 ISO or ASA. You can see on the lens here, because that's all it went up to in those days. So I can't push my film. I normally push film. So I can't do that, and I'm thinking, yeah, okay. Now we're starting to see some limitations, and there are limitations with this. But again, you've got to think of context as to whether it's relevant to you or not, and what it was designed for. It was designed to take happy snaps on holiday in probably nice weather, sunny weather. That's kind of how Olympus have configured this thing. You can't be hugely creative with it. I mean, I don't know. Right at the moment, all I'm thinking is, does the thing work? Not how creative I can be, and that's how I will shoot it. So the shots aren't going to be amazingly creative or anything. It's just, does it work? Does it focus at the said distances? Are the cells working? Because that's how it meters. It has these cells dotted around the lens, this apparently amazing Zuiko lens. Those can often, well, not often, but I've heard those can diminish in whatever. I've spoken to somebody who's an expert with these cameras, a guy called Paul at Tripman, one word. where you can buy all sorts of accessories and what have you for this camera. And he said, I emailed him, and he said that if they're working, they tend to overexpose. I thought, well, that's not a problem. It's far from a problem. That's actually a good thing. As long as it doesn't overexpose too much. You know, a stop or two is not a problem at all. That's what I do anyway with film. I know I push my film, which is underexposing, but I compensate in the development. So, but I still overexpose by a stop most of the time. If that doesn't sound, there's a method to my madness. I can assure you. It's tried and tested, but I'm not going to be able to. I'm not going to be able to push this. This is just going by what the camera can do. I could pull it. I could rate it at 320. But I'm not going to do that. I'm going to go by the letter of the law. I'm going to not do anything odd or weird. 400 film, 400 ISO, and just see what I get. If I want to then move off, you know, depending on what I get, it might be the first and last time I use this camera, but I can then gauge things from that platform, from that basis of 400 ISO, 400 film. I'm not doing anything that isn't recommended, in other words, or is a bit wayward. So yeah, I'm going to go out, shoot this film, develop it again, not doing anything weird, just a stock developer, 20 degrees centigrade, and I'll show you the results. You know, wish me luck. You know, that's as much as I can. As much I can say really on this. You know, people say you should have a lens cap for it to protect those. I mean, they're kind of solar cells, aren't they? They're it's very unusual. I've never seen anything like that on another camera before. So it's, you know, another fantastic thing for a holiday camera. Very light, about 400 odd grams. Very pocketable, very, very small. Excuse me. Mechanical, so it's not, you know. Again, if you're abroad, you don't have to scrat around trying to find batteries for, you know, for a camera. It's just going to keep working. But hey, look, it's anything between 40 and 57 years old. So I just want to know if it works. That's my one core interest in this camera at the moment. Nothing more, nothing less. It's got a nice viewfinder. I think it's 0.5, something like that, 0.55 maybe. Magnification, which is fine if you're just doing nice, cheap and cheerful little portraits on a beach somewhere, whatever. You don't need much more than that. Keep it simple. That's what Olympus have done. You've got a hot shoe and a sink, flash sink. Don't know whether you really bother with that, but it's got one. You might need to. Yeah, I've put a bumper on this, but I don't think you need anything. I don't think you need anything going across by way of light seals, because the door has quite long edges that go into the back of the camera, so that kind of design normally means you don't need light seals. You know, and the back doesn't. There's a tiny little bit of noise, but that's fine. So that bumper isn't too thick. It's not straining the hinges when it closes. But that's just a stick-on thing. That's very quick, very, very easy, very cheap to do. I just put that on because it didn't have one. It's even got a tripod screw mount there. So again, it's so light and easy. It fires at 40th of a second and 200th of a second. So my thinking is that it'll just choose one of those, probably 200 most of the time, and then choose mechanically the corresponding f-stop. I don't know. It has to do that, doesn't it? Yeah, I don't, really don't understand how, look, if you get a good exposure back, point and shoot camera, that's a nice thing with a great, really good sharp lens. I mean, that's to be determined. How precise can you be with this? Not very, probably, because you've only, you can't get your measuring tape out and measure the distance every photograph you take. But it's got the corresponding feet and meters at the bottom, along with the symbols. So 1 person, 2 person, 3 person, and mountain range for infinity. And you basically set it to the A auto program mode. That's how it's designed, and you're good to go. It focuses minimum distance for about 1 meter, so I can judge 1 meter. That's the 1 person torso type symbol. 2 symbols is probably 1.5, 2 meters, something like that. So it's going to have a tolerance because it's a 40mm lens. So in actual fact, I'm thinking, yeah, you can't be that precise, but it'll probably be fine as long as it's working, as long as it's, as long as the cells haven't gone depleted or whatever. Then it, I should be able to get perfectly okay images, sharp images, in focus images. I'm imagining, 200th of a second, that's plenty fast enough, really, for most things, unless you've got, a really fast car going by or something like that. There'll be a bit of blur, but 200 should be fine. 40, I guess, is for lower light, but just not sure how that would cope. Anyway, we'll see. I can't. It's even got a little red flag that comes up. If you forget to take the lens cap off, you can't take the photograph, and you get this red flag that comes up that tells you not enough light. Yeah, the cells have been covered by the lens cap there. I would suggest just giving a little bit of a wipe with a cotton bud around those cells, just to, if you've just bought one, just to clean it up, see if there's any muck on there. Paul sells them. They're a bit over the odds price wise, but he's CLA'd them and you get a 1 year warranty. You could argue if you bought one and it was, from a charity shop or whatever, then you could, it might be worth just buying another camera if that one doesn't work. So they're not going to be terribly expensive. But you could also argue you're back at square one again and just throwing good money after bad. If you've got one and it doesn't work that well for whatever reason, you could argue it's probably better to get it fixed, and then you know where you're at. You just go and buy another one. Again, is that one going to work? And do you know why it isn't working? These are very simple cameras, so they're pretty easy to fix, and by virtue of the fact that there are 10 million of them floating around the world's surface, parts are pretty ubiquitous, and probably pretty cheap, I would imagine, and not difficult, not expensive to fix. So I would argue it might be, although it might cost as much to buy a new one, you're no better off knowing what's wrong with that one, because that one might be broken as well for whatever reason. But they're, on the whole, pretty fixable cameras. I'm just thinking it's probably better. It depends what's wrong with it, doesn't it? I don't know. You've got to play it by ear a little bit. But they're old cameras. So, just make sure there's no fungus in the viewfinder. Make sure that the blades on your aperture are moving and not stuck, which you can do pretty damn easily. They need to go back. This is, I've looked at it, and so I've not used it before, but these blades open and they form a sort of diamond shape, which, I don't know, we'll see, but normally you have a circular shape, so any kind of bokeh background highlights will be a kind of diamond square shape, which, how much bokeh are you going to get with a lens like this out of focus from behind your subject matter? It's going to be probably very negligible, very minimal. So does that matter? Probably not. And even if you did get some, do you really look at that? I mean, some people do, but I don't really. Whatever. It's not a deal breaker at all. It's probably a nice thing that's sort of symbolic of this camera. Even, I don't know. It's got enough to arouse my interest. It's got a great lens, and it's as long as you regard it as a simple point and shoot sort of camera, but should be, in theory, hopefully, touch wood, quite easy to use, very pocketable. It's ticking some boxes, and if you get some great sharp images, then I think that makes it relevant. From it gathering dust in the bottom of my bag, I might just. It's sometimes nice just to shoot differently and have a sort of, not be too serious sometimes, and just go out and, not care too much. And I would argue something that light and that small and that pocketable, you could just, have a lot of fun with it. Get the hang of it. Like any camera, it's got its little quibbles, so you've got to go with that and understand that, and understand its limitations. Understand what it can do, understand what it's not very good at doing. And all cameras are the same. Every single camera going, I don't care how expensive it is, or every camera's got what it's brilliant at doing and not so good at doing. And I'm about to go and find out that firsthand. So, like I say, wish me luck, and I will report back. And what might be a couple of days shooting and processing might be about 2 seconds. I'll attach it to this vlog. See you in a sec. A couple of days later, what did I find? Well, I'm happy to say I ordered a couple of things for this camera. It arrived in the post today. It's an original, pretty beaten up pouch, but it's perfectly clean inside. The lens cap, an original for the lens, as I mentioned, and an original little wrist strap, I suppose you'd call it. Hey, only a few pence, so not very much money. What did I find? What did I find? So, quite interesting. I managed to get 37 exposures. I took one shot of everything, apart from right at the beginning, where I took about 3 or 4 of the same image. But other than that, just one shot, no changing distance, focusing, or anything like that. And they're all well exposed. So yes, in answer to my question, it works. It does work. It's not broken. It's not misfiring. It's not doing anything weird. So from a few days ago, which I think I started the vlog initially possibly scoffing at the camera. Yes, it works, number one, so that's a big relief. I've gone out, I've thrown caution to the wind, and I would argue that I've got some, the shots are nothing, they're just test shots, but I've got some good images back to give me a sense of what this camera does. It was a fairly bright day, and I didn't, I initially said I was loading some HP5. I didn't. I loaded some Ilford Delta. Pretty much the same thing. Other than that, just to sort of set the record straight, and it was rated at 400 ISO. Just to get that straight. This is a solar-powered camera in many respects, or solar-powered metering anyway. That's the roll. Labelled it up, just so there's no confusion. Developed it myself. I keep those so I can attach some more film. This one was a stock film, but I bulk load film now, just to keep some pricing down, some costs down, I should say. So yeah, looked at, I dried the film and then did a contact sheet, and as you can see, they're all sort of fairly, pretty much okay, well exposed, not particularly overexposed as I was, I was told that they tend to overexpose a little bit. I just found that they were pretty good. The negs look good on the light box. It just seemed to, I got some detail. It may be that it's half stop overexposed, something like that, but I was thinking it's going to be more like 2 stops, but it's not. It just exposes well, actually, very well. Nothing I'm doing, just what the camera's deciding to do. And I'm sort of very pleasantly surprised. Don't know, just pleased, really. Relieved that it works. Not that, my world was going to fall apart if it didn't, but it's just nice to have something that, has just been gathering dust and, actually works, and I can take out and use if I want to. And I'm not 100% sure whether I want to. And I'll tell you why. So, from my initial thoughts, seeing the film, seeing the contact sheet, everything looked good. Everything looked very promising. So I basically scanned every single image. Yeah. Which I wouldn't normally do, but I did in this case, just to really see, just to put on a 27-inch screen and really look at what was happening with the files. And I know that sounds a little bit overkill for a point-and-shoot camera, which is essentially what this is. What I realised with the vast majority, if not all but one, was that they just seemed a little bit soft. And again, from my research, I was led to believe that the Zuiko lens is astonishing. It's really blisteringly sharp. Now, I'm not sure whether people say that in relation to the fact that it's a sharp lens for a point and shoot, or whether it's just a sharp lens. I found that the images were a little bit soft, very consistently all the way through. They kind of look okay until you blow them up a little bit, and then it starts, it just seems a little bit soft. Now, out of camera, these images, as you scan them, they are not terribly contrasty, which is a good thing because that enables you to have a file that you can work with well. So I put a little bit of contrast in. Didn't have to do too much, or I deliberately didn't do too much to them, just because I wanted you to see what you would get straight as a scan, and then a tiny amount of Lightroom. And in Lightroom, I increased the contrast a little bit, not too much, just to help with the contrast, and I sharpened them a little bit. And they still looked a little bit soft. Not terribly bad, not sort of glaringly obviously soft. Sort of okay-ish, but just, again, as I say, when you expand them a little bit, they just didn't look all that sharp. Now, I kind of thought about it, and I thought, well, maybe it's just my lens. Maybe the lens is not great on this particular camera. I don't know. Don't forget, these cameras have been taken on holiday. They've been thrown in beach bags and been exposed to sand and sea and salt, and so maybe it's had a knock, maybe something's happened, I don't know. It was almost as though, because it was on all of them, it was, I was beginning to think about the 200th of a second and 40th of a second. It only fires at those two shutter speeds, so I was thinking maybe it's firing at the 40th every time, and hence I'm not holding it. 40th of a second is not all that sharp, all that fast. 200th should be fine, but maybe it's, for some reason, it's just shooting at the 40th of a second. That was the impression I had, because it's fairly uniform all the way through. I mean, if you look through the images, I think I've nailed the distance focusing thing on every single shot, which I wasn't expecting to do, but I was quite fastidious about it, and so it's not that it's I've got the distance focusing wrong. Then I thought, as I would with one of my better shots, I tend to do a tiny bit of sharpening in Lightroom, and then I go over to Photoshop and do the unsharp, so you can be absolutely pinpoint with it, and get it as sharp as you can without it doing unpleasant things. I did that, and then it improved. It got better. It did, and you could say that's a sharp image, but it's all relative, isn't it? I was thinking, it's not a sharp image in terms of Leica and stuff like that. It isn't. But hey, guess what? Neither is the camera. So in the end, I would say I've managed to achieve an acceptable level of sharpness, where I'm happy in the sense that it's a point and shoot camera, and it's all about context, isn't it? So I know that I can get a reasonably sharp image, and that, from it, realizing and learning that it initially works, it does expose. I still would love to know whether these cameras can fire at just the 40th of a second. Seems to me the cells are either working or they're not. The blades are either working or they're not. So if they are, then I can't understand why it would fire at a 40th, if you see what I mean. But I would like to be able to eliminate that. I would like it to fire at a 200th of a second, or know that that's what I get, and when it is firing at 200th of a second. In other words, that these were shot at 200th of a second, just so I can understand better what the capability of this camera is. It'd just be nice to know, to see whether or not files straight out of the camera are sharper or not. But other than that, I guess I'm pretty pleased with it. All in all, with apart from the slight niggle, and even that, or even then, I should say, it took some work to get it sharp, or to get it to an acceptable level of sharpness, but it's kind of pretty much there. It's pretty much good. Don't enlarge it too much, I just do that anyway, just to see what's happening, what's going on. But that would print up fine, really. It's not a camera that you can critically focus or, critically do anything with, really. You're just in the hands of the camera, and I don't really know anything about this camera. I've downloaded some instructions, but I don't really think there's an awful lot to know about it other than getting those distances right. And if I think I have. So I can't sort of blame. I can't say, oh, I forgot to, focus properly. I don't even know what you call it. Focusing with a symbol on the lens, 1 meter, 2 meters, that kind of thing. Straight on a 27-inch screen, that looks pretty sharp to me. It looks sharp enough, but it doesn't look pin sharp. So, hey, that's all I can say, really. I can't give any more information than that because, one, my experience with these cameras is zero. I'm learning as I go, but that's all I can say about this one particular camera. Maybe others are a lot sharper. I think that's probably why I'm a little bit disappointed. Not disappointed, that'd be too much, but from having been told that the lenses are fantastic, like I said a few days ago, that aroused my interest. A great lens, but maybe that's just a great lens for a point and shoot. I don't know. People don't say. I would say it's an okay lens, or on this particular camera, it's an okay lens. Maybe other units are much sharper. Maybe this has been dropped. I can't see any nasty dings on it, but who knows? Maybe it's not been dropped. Maybe it's just not such a sharp lens. I don't know. Don't know what the production quality was like back then. I would say that with a bit of work, you can get a pretty okay, decently sharp, acceptably sharp file. Would I recommend it? I don't know. I really don't know. I think it would be a bit contentious of me to say I wouldn't recommend it, because this is a very popular camera. I mean, I was scoffing at a bit the other day at the wind-on wheel. It's just plastic and what have you. But if you look at the film, it's all perfectly separated. There aren't any kind of horrible wide marks or where it hasn't wound on properly. It's wound on perfectly each and every time. So, hey, plastic shutter release. Okay, well, it's just a shutter release. It doesn't matter, does it? So, I'm pleasantly surprised and pleased with it. Really, I mean, all in all, would I recommend it? I'm not in the business of recommending. It is what it is. Only you can decide. I can't see myself using it a whole lot, but I wouldn't I wouldn't think, no, I'll leave that, for another 6 years to gather dust. I may take it out for, another journey. I think there are times when it could be quite good fun. It exposes well. It's, with a bit of work, you get an acceptably okay, sharp image. That was in the sun. All the images were taken in the sun, or on a sunny day. I didn't spend too long looking for good images or anything. As I say, this was just an exercise to see whether the thing worked or not. Yeah, I mean, it's a 35mm neg quality film, quality negative. So, I mean, I can see myself perhaps at some point using it, but I don't think I'm going to be wearing it out anytime soon. But it was a fun thing to do, and my thing is my thing, I suppose. I can't push the film, which is a bit of a negative, pardon the pun, for me. So it's not a complete deal breaker or anything like that, but sharpness isn't even the absolute thing for me. I'm just not hugely excited. I just thought out of the camera the images would be a little bit sharper, but just because of what I'd been led to believe. But I mean, maybe that is sharp to some people. I don't know. I mean, I can only report what I find, and for what it is, it's an old, nearly 60-year-old camera. Come on, I mean, get real. I should be really, actually, very pleased. I should be, but I'm not. I'm not displeased. I am pleased. The thing works. Now that I know it works, and it's small, and it's pocketable, and it's... if this thing did break, I'm not sure I'd be running to get it repaired, is what I'm saying. It's not... and I don't know why. I sort of thought I would be more enthused. And it's not the fact that it's not blisteringly sharp. Maybe I just need to use it a bit more and sort of, as with any camera, you need to just understand it a bit more and use it a bit more. I suppose just coming from the MP, I'm not comparing it to the MP, but the MP, you do everything yourself. It's all, it's a complete manual camera. And going from that to nothing, to just... it's a hope and a prayer kind of thing. You set your distance, maybe that, I think that's about right, but there's, and that's it, and you just click, and it's just a weird feeling, I guess, from total control to very little control, and not knowing, if somebody said that's blisteringly sharp for an Olympus Trip, somebody told me that, no, that's 200th of a second, but that's just as sharp as you get, then I'd go, okay, all right, I'll go with that. It's just the fact I'm not quite sure if there is something maybe wrong with the lens, or Is that anyway? I'm just waffling now, but a fun thing to do. Little exercise. It's cost me nothing because it was given to me, so I can't complain at all. I think it's a sort of camera that could grow on you. Maybe. I think I just have to accept that it's a no control camera. Go out and be a bit reckless. Be a bit sort of throw caution to the wind. And I mean, that's what I've done. And I've got 37 images back from it that are well exposed and are absolutely fine. And so I can see myself using it again. I can definitely see myself using it again. I know that sounds a little bit sort of unenthused, but I can only report what I find and what I think at any given time. Maybe in a month I'll be dancing on the rafters or something. I'm not sure. The jury's out a little bit, but I think it's probably quite a nice little camera when all's said and done. I'm kind of thinking about it as I'm talking that, and I think maybe I'll have a word with Paul at Tripman to see, maybe send him an image and see what he thinks, because he knows them inside out, and sort of understand it a little, sort of know what my expectations should be, if that makes sense, and then go from there. And if he says no, that's that's as good as I get, then I'll go with that, and then I'll just know that that's what it should be. And I'm not doing anything wrong. I'm not, the camera isn't firing at a 40th of a second every time, and something's getting a little bit stuck. Do you know what I mean? If I can eliminate that and know that it's all okay, then you then know that you can go out and you're going to get what you're going to get, and you can allay your question marks, I suppose, your queries, and then just start enjoying the camera. Hope that was useful. Got some other vlogs coming up soon, so watch out for those. But that was the Olympus Trip 35. Thanks for stopping by. See you for the next one.